How does the sales process work?
It can be any of the forms that you see in other markets, such as telecommunications. It can be telemarketing. There's some door-to-door sales that's taking place. The do not call registry is in place, so if you don't like getting telecommunications calls on these kinds of things, you're not going to get them from these kinds of providers. I see a lot of mail. I see a lot of hard mail coming into my mailbox about these kinds of services.
Which is usually what I get too.
And I like that, Jack, because when you do get a hard piece of paper, it usually has a nice amount of information. They usually have the websites listed that you can go on to at the Public Service Commission to kind of verify that, yeah, this is a real entity in my jurisdiction, and this is somebody that I can trust. And you can get complaint information on the website. So you will get the kinds of marketing that you get from, you know, a telephone company or any other kind of provider.
Yeah, that's been my experience in terms of the mail that comes in, and that's pretty powerful because you can do your own due diligence. You still have to be a smart consumer in any of these choices we make in life, and this is no exception. And the reality is, you look at that, and there's usually some nice comparative information, and it's pretty clear. You know, in English, very user friendly, and a number, or you can return it, but a number to have someone on the other end ask some questions and feel comfortable about the choice.
And I know we keep coming back to the website, but I don't want to underemphasize how valuable it is. If you're buying oil, you basically either go into the telephone book, or you call your neighbor, or you get a recommendation. There are very few commodities you can get on a website.
On a website.
Have them show you all the folks that are out there. All these people are registered with your local Public Utility Commission. They have to go through a certain process to verify that they are, you know, real, you know, honest-to-goodness companies that can provide these services. There's a set of protections above and beyond, you know, what you have in certain other types of private commodities that protect your rights and to make sure that you get the kind of notice about termination clauses and so forth. So it really is a very, very powerful shopping tool.
That's a good
Go ahead, Paul.
I would say that's a very good point that Maureen mentions, that similar to New York, back in Massachusetts and throughout New England, when these companies want to do business, they register with us, and there's a protocol of minimum assurances they need to make. So there's been a cut at the regulators saying, a company meets these minimum requirements, and now you consumer can make the choice, but here's a list that you can choose from, and that's an important, it should give some comfort to consumers as well.
All right, now Maureen, I know you've already let the cat out of the bag that you have an independent energy supplier for your home. How did you go through the process of picking? Had you gotten your electricity before from the neighborhood utility, and what is it that prompted you in your personal life to make the change?
Well, I started doing it when I was chair of the PSC, and frankly, I did it as a personal laboratory to see how hard it was, and I never had a problem. I subsequently moved into, you know, a little bit closer to Albany, and at that point I started to get the mail that everybody else gets, and I started to look at the individual sheets that I got from this company and that company. But then at that point I got on the website and I looked at all the companies that were available, and I have my own personal preferences about how much stability I want versus how much money I want to save, and the various things that, you know, we all take into consideration. All those personal preferences are different, and based on those preferences I chose a company, and I've been happy ever since. And
does each company have like a varying amount of time in a contract? You know, can you have it as short as a month? Can you have it are some only a year? Are some 5 years? How does that work?
It does vary, and a lot of that again is the interchange between how much stability you want versus not. If you're looking for a very stable product for a fairly, you know, long period of time, obviously the contract is going to be a longer term contract. If that's not as important to you, then there'll be a company that will provide a shorter contract.
And I guess some of that would involve how long you expect to stay in a particular area too.
Part of it, and also, you know, your risk tolerance. You know, how maybe I just want to check this guy out before I, you know, I sign up for a longer term contract. There's all kinds of personal decisions that go into that.
Okay, Paul.
Well, it's funny. Maureen was chair of the commission here. I did the same back home. Was to sort of I've been preaching in terms of competition. I figured, well, I should be an example of it. And I did the same thing. And I wanted to test, in particular, among other things, how seamless. Was it easy? You know, I'd been preaching this. And the conclusion, it was. It was a quick conversation. I had the comparison, and I locked it in for a year. And it was a very good experience, and very easy, very straightforward. Saved a few dollars, and it was the right thing to do. It was easy.
And I guess, too, in all of this discussion, even though we're talking about independent suppliers, a perfectly valid choice is not changing anything.
If that's exactly, and that is a choice, right? That's a choice to do that. But it's it shouldn't be a default choice. You know, it should be a choice in the sense of you've had the information, you've taken a few minutes to look at it, and you're comfortable with that. Simply because you don't want to spend a couple minutes to do it, you may be missing, and I would suggest you're likely missing a possibly good opportunity.
Okay, just a minute left. Any final thoughts?
I defer to my New York.
Just what Paul said. Take advantage of it. It's not hours of your time. It's minutes of your time. It's getting on the phone with somebody who will answer your questions. Take the couple of minutes to find out what your options are, and then if you choose to stay with the utility, that's fine. That's what it's there for. It's there to provide service when you're not interested in going someplace else, but take the time to shop. Okay, and the good starting point for all of you is the websites in New York. It's www.askpsc.com, and then click on Power to Choose, and that will list all of the utilities in a given area. For Connecticut, it's ctenergyinfo.com. Maureen and Paul, thank you both very much for joining us today. Thank you all for watching. We really appreciate your participation. Have yourself a great day.